Sometimes life takes unexpected turns that test not just our generosity, but our very understanding of what family means. My name is Sarah, and I'm 52 years old now, though this story begins when I was 42. I've been married to my wonderful husband Michael for 25 years, and together we've raised three beautiful children who are now teenagers. This is the story of how coming into money changed everything, but not in the ways you might expect. 10 years ago, something remarkable happened to our family. After years of dedication to my career in biomedical research and some incredibly fortunate investment decisions I'd made in my 30s, we suddenly found ourselves in a position most people only dream about. The money came in waves, first from a breakthrough patent I'd been part of developing, then from early investments in several tech startups that exploded beyond anyone's wildest expectations. It wasn't lottery money, it was the result of calculated risks and years of 70-hour work weeks. But to everyone else, it might as well have been magic. Michael and I had always talked about what we'd do if we ever had real money. You know those conversations couples have late at night, dreaming about possibilities that seem impossibly distant. Pay off the house, maybe get a reliable car, take the kids to Disney World. Simple dreams for simple people. But when the first significant payment came through, and I saw those numbers in our account, I just sat there staring at the computer screen, my hands shaking slightly. Michael found me there an hour later, still staring, tears streaming down my face. The first thing we did was exactly what we'd always said we would. We paid off our mortgage on our modest four-bedroom house in suburban Connecticut. The feeling of calling the bank and hearing them confirm we owned our home, free and clear, was indescribable. That night, we opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving for a special occasion and sat on our back porch watching our kids play in the yard, feeling like the luckiest people alive. Next came the car. Nothing flashy, just a reliable Honda Pilot that could fit our whole family comfortably. Michael insisted it was my money, from my work and my investments, but I've never seen it that way. We built this life together. Every late night he spent taking care of the kids while I worked, every sacrifice we made as a family, every dream we shared, it all led to this moment. The money might have come through my efforts, but it belonged to our family. With the practical matters settled, we turned to something we'd dreamed about for years. There's a small coastal town in Maine where we'd vacationed when the kids were little, back when we had to save all year just to rent a tiny cottage for a week. We'd fallen in love with the place, the way the fog rolled in each morning, the sound of the lighthouse horn, the friendly locals who remembered us year after year. When a charming three-bedroom house came on the market just a short walk from the beach, we didn't hesitate. We bought it and decided to rent it out to a lovely local family, the Andersons, for most of the year. They'd been priced out of their previous rental by out-of-state investors, and we were happy to offer them a fair rate, while still having our special place available for family vacations. As more money continued to flow in, we sat down with a financial advisor, a wonderful woman named Janet, who came highly recommended. She helped us see beyond our immediate needs and think about the future. That's when we decided to set up college funds for our children. Each of our three kids would have enough to cover 5 years of education at any school they could get into. Whatever remained after graduation could be used as a down payment on their first home. The relief on their faces when we told them they wouldn't have to worry about student loans was worth more than any luxury we could have bought for ourselves. But here's where our story takes an interesting turn. Michael has 2 sisters, Patricia and Jennifer. Patricia is married to David, and they have 3 children. Jennifer is married to Robert, and they have 2. My younger brother James has 2 children with his wife Maria. 7 nieces and nephews in total, all bright, deserving kids who we adored. Michael and I looked at each other one evening and knew what we had to do. If we were setting our children up for success, how could we not do the same for their cousins? We set up identical college funds for all 7 nieces and nephews. Same amount, same rules. Patricia's oldest, Emma was already a sophomore at college, so we wrote her parents a check for what they'd already paid, keeping everything fair. The gratitude from our siblings was overwhelming. My brother James actually broke down crying when we told him. He'd been losing sleep over how to pay for his kids' education while caring for Maria's elderly mother. The extended family gathered for Thanksgiving that year was unlike any we'd had before. There was a lightness in the air, a sense of possibility. The kids were making plans, dreaming bigger dreams. The adults seemed to stand a little taller, breathe a little easier. We'd lifted a weight from everyone's shoulders, and it felt wonderful. But we weren't done yet. Our accountant, who had become a trusted friend over the years, helped us figure out the most beneficial way to help James and Patricia with their mortgages. We didn't pay them off entirely, that felt too much like charity, and we knew they'd be uncomfortable with it. Instead, we paid down the principal significantly, cutting years off their loans and saving them tens of thousands in interest. For Jennifer and Robert, who were still renting and saving for a house, we gifted them enough for a substantial down payment. Michael's parents, who'd already paid off their house through years of hard work, were sent on a 2-week cruise through the Mediterranean, something his mother had dreamed of since she was a young woman. We also couldn't forget our chosen family, those friends who'd been there through thick and thin. Several close friends had children approaching college age, and we quietly set up modest funds for them too. Not the full amount we'd given our nieces and nephews, but enough to make a real difference. We worked with local charities we'd volunteered with over the years, setting up scholarship funds and supporting programs that had helped our community. For ourselves, we took the entire extended family on both sides on a vacation to a beautiful resort in Florida. 3 generations together for a week of sun, laughter, and memory-making. Watching the cousins play together, seeing the grandparents relax by the pool, sharing meals with our siblings without anyone worrying about the check, it was perfection. Through all of this, most everyone was graciously grateful. They understood the spirit in which these gifts were given, not as charity or showing off, but as a family taking care of each other. Most everyone. There was one exception, and her name was Jennifer. Jennifer, Michael's younger sister, had always been what you might politely call high maintenance. She was the baby of the family, born 8 years after Michael and 6 years after Patricia. Their parents had doted on her, and it showed. She had a way of making everything about herself, of finding the cloud in every silver lining. At family gatherings, she needed to be the center of attention. If someone else had good news, she had better news. If someone faced a challenge, her challenges were always worse. But she was family, and we loved her despite her flaws. She was wonderful with the children when it suited her, could be charming and fun when she wanted to be, and we'd shared too many memories to let personality conflicts get in the way. Her husband Robert was a quiet man who'd learned to navigate her moods with the patience of a saint. Their 2 children, despite their mother's influence, were turning out to be lovely young people. The financial gifts had barely been distributed when Jennifer started dropping hints. At first, they were subtle. She'd mention how exhausted she was, how desperately the family needed a real vacation. Not like the Florida trip, which she described as nice but crowded with all that family around. She needed real relaxation, real luxury. She'd leave travel magazines open to pages featuring exclusive resorts in exotic locations. She'd casually mention friends who'd gone on amazing trips, always with a wistful sigh. Michael and I perfected the art of selective deafness. We'd change the subject, suddenly remember urgent errands, develop fascination with whatever the children were doing. But Jennifer was nothing if not persistent. Over the next 2 years, the hints became less subtle. She'd send me links to resort websites with messages like, "Wouldn't this be amazing?" or "The kids would love this place." When we'd see them for Sunday dinners, she'd inevitably bring up vacation plans, looking at me expectantly. Robert would shift uncomfortably in his seat while she painted elaborate pictures of the family trips they could take, if only they had the funds. The thing is, they did have funds. Robert had a good job as a school administrator, and Jennifer worked part-time as a real estate agent. The money we'd given them for a house down payment had been substantial, and they'd bought a lovely home in a good neighborhood. The college funds meant they didn't need to save for their children's education. They were comfortable, more than comfortable. But Jennifer had developed a taste for luxury that their income couldn't support. What made it harder was the way she treated me when she thought no one was looking. Jennifer had mastered the art of the subtle put-down, the backhanded compliment, the passive-aggressive remark delivered with a sweet smile. She'd make comments about my work, suggesting that anyone could have made those investments if they'd been lucky enough. She'd question whether someone in biomedical research really understood business, implying I'd simply gotten fortunate rather than made smart decisions. At a family barbecue, I overheard her telling her friend that it must be nice to just stumble into money without really earning it. When Patricia defended me, mentioning my years of education and hard work, Jennifer laughed it off. "Oh, I'm not criticizing," she said sweetly. "Sarah's been very generous with her windfall. I just think it's important to stay humble when fortune smiles on you." Michael heard about these comments secondhand and was furious, but I asked him not to confront her. Family dynamics are complicated, and I didn't want to be the reason for a rift between siblings. Besides, I'd dealt with worse in my professional life. Academia and research are full of people who try to diminish others' accomplishments. I'd learned to let it roll off my back. But Jennifer's campaign for an all-expense-paid luxury vacation continued. The pandemic hit, and for a while, travel was off the table anyway. We all hunkered down, grateful for our health and safety. The college funds we'd set up proved even more valuable as the economy struggled and many families faced uncertainty. Several of our nieces and nephews were able to continue their education without interruption, while their classmates struggled with financial aid changes and family job losses. Jennifer and Robert, like many families, took the pandemic seriously. They kept their children safe, followed guidelines, and for a while the vacation demands ceased. But as restrictions lifted and travel resumed, Jennifer came back with renewed determination. She'd spent the lockdown months apparently researching every high-end resort within a 2-hour flight of the East Coast. It was at her son Tyler's 13th birthday party when things came to a head. We'd arrived with thoughtful gifts, a camping tent, and gear Tyler had been wanting for Boy Scouts, and for Jennifer, a generous gift certificate to her favorite spa. It also included some travel-sized luxuries, high-end sunscreen, a beautiful beach hat, some aromatherapy oils, knowing she'd been dreaming of a getaway. The party was lovely at first. Tyler was thrilled with his gifts, already planning camping trips with his friends. Jennifer seemed pleased with the spa certificate, giving me what appeared to be a genuine hug of thanks. We settled in the backyard with the other guests, watching the kids play, enjoying the spring weather. Then Jennifer asked about our summer plans. We mentioned we'd booked a week at a cabin in the Adirondacks, nothing fancy but right on a lake with beautiful hiking trails nearby. Jennifer's eyes lit up in a way I'd learned to recognize as trouble brewing. "Oh, how nice," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "We're still deciding what to do. There are so many options when you're not limited by budget." The implication hung in the air like a bad smell. Robert shot her a warning look, but she continued. "I've been researching some amazing places. Family-friendly, but still luxurious. You know, the kind of place where you can really relax and be pampered." Michael and I exchanged glances and started throwing out suggestions, hoping to divert the conversation. There were lovely local resorts, we mentioned. State parks with cabins. That beach town in Delaware we'd all enjoyed years ago. But Jennifer wasn't interested in modest suggestions. Then she pulled out her phone and showed us what she'd found. It was beautiful, I'll give her that. An all-inclusive resort in Turks and Caicos with everything you could imagine. Water park for the kids, spa for the adults, gourmet restaurants, pristine beaches. She scrolled through photo after photo, her children and ours gathering around to look. "The price is actually quite reasonable," she said, which should have been our warning. "For a family of 5, it's only about $35,000 for the week. That includes everything, even the activities in Kids Club." Robert nearly choked on his drink. "$35,000? Jennifer, that's a lot," Michael finished diplomatically. "But hey, you guys have been saving up. That's great that you can afford something like that." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. "Oh, we haven't been saving for this," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "We assumed Sarah would want to gift this to us for my birthday." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the backyard. Everyone stared. Even the kids stopped playing to look over at us. Tyler and his sisters seemed confused. The other adults looked deeply uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," I said, finding my voice. "Did you just say you expect me to pay $35,000 for your vacation?" "Well, yes," Jennifer said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. "You have the money. You've been so generous with everyone else. My birthday is coming up, and I can't think of a better gift. The kids have been promised, haven't you, sweeties?" Her children looked mortified. Tyler, bless him, spoke up. "Mum, we didn't. You said we might go somewhere nice. You didn't say Aunt Sarah would pay for it." But Jennifer pressed on. "Family takes care of family. You've said that yourself, Sarah, and really, $35,000 is nothing to you now. You spend that much on your investments in a single day, I'm sure." The entitlement was breathtaking. This woman, who had received a house down payment, whose children's educations were fully funded, who'd been included in family vacations and celebrations all paid for by us, was sitting here demanding a luxury vacation that cost more than many people's annual salaries. "Jennifer," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger building inside me, "we've been very generous with our family. We've paid down your mortgage, set up college funds for your children, included you in family trips." "Exactly," she interrupted. "You've done all that, so what's one more thing? It's not like you'll miss the money, and we deserve this. After everything we've been through with the pandemic, we need this trip." Michael found his voice then, and there was steel in it. "Everyone went through the pandemic, Jen. Everyone deserves a nice vacation. That doesn't mean Sarah should pay for it." "But she can," Jennifer insisted, her voice rising slightly. "She has millions, millions. And here we are, her family, and she won't even help us with one little trip." $35,000 is not little," Robert said quietly. He looked embarrassed and angry. "Jennifer, this is inappropriate. Sarah and Michael have been more than generous." "Oh, taking her side, are you?" Jennifer turned on her husband. "Typical. You never support me. Sarah sits there on her pile of money like some dragon, doling out little bits here and there, and you think we should be grateful for crumbs." "Crumbs?" I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Jennifer, we paid off 60% of your mortgage. Your Patricia, you waltz in here with your fancy degrees and your important job, and you think you're better than everyone else. Then you get lucky with some investments, and suddenly you're Lady Bountiful, expecting us all to grovel for whatever handouts you decide to throw our way." "That's enough," Michael said, standing up. "Jennifer, you need to stop right now." But she continued, years of resentment pouring out. "She's turned you all against me. Every family gathering, there's Sarah, showing off how generous she is, making sure everyone knows where the money comes from. Well, I see through it. I see through you." She pointed at me. "You're not generous. You're controlling. You use your money to make sure everyone dances to your tune." Her son Tyler was in tears now. "Mom, please stop," he begged. "Aunt Sarah's always been nice to us. She paid for my summer camp and my sister's dance classes." "Of course you'd take her side," Jennifer snapped at her own son. "She's bought you all." That was when Tyler pulled out his phone. "Mom, I have to show you something," he said, his young voice shaking. "I was making a TikTok video last week and I accidentally recorded you. You were on the phone with Aunt Cheryl." Before Jennifer could stop him, Tyler played the video. His phone had captured Jennifer in the background, clearly audible, saying horrible things about me, calling me names I won't repeat, suggesting Michael should divorce me and find someone who deserved the money, making cruel jokes about my appearance and my work. The backyard went completely silent. Robert's face had gone pale, then red. "You recorded this?" he asked his son. Tyler nodded miserably. "I didn't mean to. I was just making a dance video. But when Mum started saying we deserved Aunt Sarah's money, I remembered I had this." Jennifer tried to snatch the phone, but Robert stopped her. "No," he said firmly. "We're done here. Kids, go inside and pack your things. We're going to stay with Grandma for a few days." Robert! Jennifer's voice was shrill now. You can't be serious. It was just venting. Everyone vents. Sarah's being over-dramatic, as usual. But Robert was already shepherding their children inside. Patricia followed to help, murmuring soothing words to the upset kids. The remaining guests had fled, leaving just Jennifer, Michael, and me in the backyard. You've ruined everything, Jennifer hissed at me. My marriage, my family, everything. I hope you're happy. You ruined it yourself, Michael said quietly. Sarah has shown you nothing but generosity and kindness, and you've repaid her with jealousy and spite. You're my sister and I love you, but I'm ashamed of you right now. Jennifer's face crumpled then, realizing she'd pushed too far. It's not fair. Why does she get to have everything? The career, the money, the perfect family. What about me? When is it my turn? You have a beautiful family, I said, finding compassion despite everything. You have a husband who loves you, wonderful children, a lovely home, financial security many people would envy. Your turn came long ago. You just couldn't see it because you were too busy looking at what others had. Jennifer left then, driving off in her BMW to her 4-bedroom house in her upscale neighborhood to contemplate the ruins of the party where she'd demanded a $35,000 gift from the sister-in-law she'd spent years bad-mouthing. The aftermath was swift. Robert did indeed take the kids to his mother's house. He called us the next day to apologize, saying he'd suspected Jennifer felt this way but had no idea the depth of her resentment. He was considering marriage counseling, but wasn't sure if Jennifer would agree to go. Patricia was furious with her sister. She revealed that Jennifer had been complaining about me for years, always careful to do so when Michael wasn't around, always framing it as concern or jokes. The family had tried to correct her, but she was masterful at playing the victim, at making others feel like they were overreacting. The video Tyler had accidentally captured spread through the family grapevine. Other relatives came forward with their own stories of Jennifer's behavior, things they'd been too polite or too uncertain to mention before. A pattern emerged of someone consumed by envy and entitlement, who saw others' success as a personal affront. Michael was heartbroken. He'd always known Jennifer could be difficult, but he'd attributed it to being the baby of the family, to personality quirks that would mellow with age. To discover the depth of her animosity toward me, the woman he'd loved for over 2 decades, was devastating. We gave Jennifer space to cool off, hoping she might come to her senses and apologize. Instead, she doubled down. She called various family members, trying to rally support, painting herself as the victim of our wealth and arrogance. Most saw through it, but some distant relatives who didn't know the full story began reaching out, suggesting we could afford to be more generous. Then came the email. 2 weeks after the birthday party fiasco, Jennifer sent a long message to the entire family. In it, she laid out her grievances, how we'd humiliated her at Tyler's party, how our selective generosity was tearing the family apart, how the money had changed us, made us cruel and controlling. She ended with an ultimatum. Either we paid for the vacation she wanted, or she would no longer allow us to see her children. She knew how much we loved Tyler and his sisters, how important family was to us. It was emotional blackmail, pure and simple. Robert responded before we could, hitting reply all. His email was brief but devastating. He was filing for divorce. He would not allow his children to be used as pawns. Jennifer's behavior had opened his eyes to patterns he'd been excusing for years. He apologized to me personally for not seeing it sooner, for not protecting me from her venom. The divorce was ugly. Jennifer fought for everything, convinced she deserved more because of our wealth, as if our money somehow factored into her divorce settlement. She tried to poison the children against their father, against us, but teenagers are smarter than people give them credit for. Tyler and his sisters had seen their mother's behavior firsthand. They chose to live primarily with Robert. During this time, something else happened that changed everything. A former colleague from a startup I'd invested in early on reached out. He was starting a new venture and wanted me as a consultant. The work was fascinating, involving breakthrough medical technology that could change how we detect certain cancers. I threw myself into it, grateful for the distraction from family drama. It was at a conference for this new venture that I met someone who would become unexpectedly important to our story. Her name was Diana, and she was a fellow researcher who'd gone through something remarkably similar. Her own family had imploded when she'd sold her company for a significant sum. We bonded over coffee and shared horror stories. The money doesn't change people, Diana told me. It reveals them. Your sister-in-law was always this person. The money just gave her an excuse to show it. She was right, of course. Looking back, I could see the signs. The way Jennifer always had to one-up everyone else's good news. The way she'd make little digs at other family members' successes. The way she'd always positioned herself as the victim, no matter the situation. But understanding didn't make it easier. Our family gatherings were forever changed. Holidays became negotiations about who would attend when. The easy laughter and natural warmth were replaced by careful scheduling and walking on eggshells. Tyler and his sisters did their best to maintain relationships with everyone, but the strain showed. Then, just when we thought things couldn't get more complicated, Jennifer escalated. She began showing up at our house uninvited, demanding to talk. The first time, Michael answered the door. She pushed past him, marching into our living room like she owned the place. "I've been thinking," she announced, as if the past months hadn't happened. "I'm willing to forgive you for the pain you've caused my family. We can move forward, but things need to change." The audacity was breathtaking. She laid out her terms as if negotiating a business deal. We would pay for her divorce lawyer. We would set up a trust fund for her separate from what we'd already done for her children. We would agree to monthly family dinners where we would treat her with the respect she deserved. When we politely but firmly declined all of her demands, she became vindictive. She started a blog about wealth inequality, using thinly veiled references to our situation. She reached out to my professional contacts on social media, hinting that I'd gained my wealth through unethical means. She even contacted my employer, suggesting they investigate whether I'd used company resources for personal gain. Fortunately, my reputation and track record spoke for themselves. My employer dismissed her allegations immediately. My colleagues, many of whom had known me for years, recognized the baseless attacks for what they were. But it was exhausting and stressful, requiring legal intervention to finally stop. The restraining order was the last straw for Jennifer. Faced with legal consequences for her harassment, she finally retreated. She moved to Arizona, telling anyone who would listen that she'd been driven from her home by our cruelty. The last I heard, she was working at a real estate firm there, still blaming everyone else for her problems. Robert and the children thrived without her toxic presence. He threw himself into being the best single father he could be. We made sure the kids knew our door was always open, that what happened between adults didn't change our love for them. Tyler, in particular, grew close to us. He'd been deeply affected by seeing his mother's true nature revealed, and we spent many evenings talking through his complicated feelings. Patricia stepped up beautifully, becoming the sister Michael needed. She'd always been the steady one, the peacemaker, but now she showed a protective streak we hadn't seen before. She made sure Michael knew that Jennifer's behavior wasn't his fault, that he couldn't have prevented it or fixed it. Our own children learned valuable lessons through all of this. They saw how money could bring out the worst in people, how entitlement could poison relationships, how important it was to remain grounded and grateful. Our eldest, who'd been considering a business degree, added psychology courses to his schedule. Fascinated by what drives human behavior, the money continued to come in from my investments and ongoing consulting work. We expanded our charitable giving, finding joy in supporting causes that mattered to us. We set up a scholarship fund at my old high school for students interested in STEM fields. We supported local food banks and homeless shelters. We funded research into the rare disease that had taken Michael's father too young, but we also learned to be more careful. Not everyone who smiled and congratulated us was genuinely happy for our good fortune. We became more private about our finances, more selective about what we shared and with whom. It wasn't that we became less generous, just more thoughtful about how we expressed that generosity. We still took family vacations, but they were smaller now, just us and Patricia's family, sometimes Robert and the kids. They were actually more enjoyable without the underlying tension Jennifer had always brought. We could relax, be ourselves, enjoy each other's company without worrying about what would trigger the next drama. The beach house in Maine became our sanctuary. We spent more time there, sometimes inviting close friends, sometimes just our immediate family. The Andersons, our tenants, became like extended family. Their daughter would babysit when we visited with younger relatives. Their son helped maintain the property with the care of someone who truly loved the place. 5 years after the birthday party incident, Tyler graduated from high school. He'd grown into a remarkable young man, thoughtful and kind, determined not to repeat his mother's mistakes. In his graduation speech, he thanked his father, his aunts and uncles, and us for showing him what family really meant. He chose to attend college close to home, partly to stay near his younger sisters, partly because he'd received an excellent scholarship to study engineering at a local university. The college fund we'd set up meant he could focus on his studies without working multiple jobs, could take unpaid internships that would advance his career, could study abroad for a semester without worry. Jennifer didn't attend his graduation. She'd been invited. Tyler had insisted on that. But she claimed she couldn't get time off work. She sent a card with a small check, which Tyler donated to a charity supporting single-parent families. He was learning to love his mother from a distance, to accept her limitations while not letting them define his life. Around this time, something interesting happened. Diana, my friend from the conference, reached out with a proposition. She was starting a foundation focused on financial literacy for young women in STEM fields. Would I be interested in joining the board? The idea was to not just provide scholarships, but to teach recipients how to manage money, invest wisely, and avoid the pitfalls that sudden wealth could bring. I accepted immediately. It felt like coming full circle, using our experience, both good and bad, to help others navigate similar waters. Michael joined too, bringing his perspective on family dynamics and the non-financial impacts of wealth. Together with Diana and other board members, we created a comprehensive program that went beyond just writing checks. The Foundation's first event was a weekend workshop for scholarship recipients. We brought in financial advisors, successful entrepreneurs, and yes, family therapists to talk about the holistic challenges of financial success. One session focused entirely on dealing with family members who felt entitled to your success. The room was packed, clearly touching a nerve. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. "What do you do," she asked, "when it's your own mother who treats you like an ATM?" The room fell silent. I could feel everyone waiting for my response. I thought about Jennifer, about the pain her entitlement had caused, about the family gatherings we'd never have again. "You love them," I said finally, "but you love yourself too. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, even if that someone is family. Set boundaries. Stick to them. And remember that saying no to unreasonable demands isn't selfish. It's necessary." The young woman nodded, tears in her eyes. Later, she found me during the break to share more of her story. It was heartbreakingly familiar. The family member who saw her success as their opportunity, who used guilt and manipulation to try to access her resources. These interactions reinforced why the Foundation's work was so important. Financial success, especially for women, especially when you're the first in your family to achieve it, comes with unique challenges. We couldn't prevent every Jennifer situation, but we could at least prepare people for the possibility. The Foundation grew quickly. We expanded from 1 city to 5 within 2 years. Corporate sponsors came on board, impressed by our holistic approach. We started a mentorship program, pairing established professionals with rising stars. Michael and I both served as mentors, sharing not just our successes but our mistakes and hard-learned lessons. One evening, after a particularly successful fundraising gala, Michael and I sat in our hotel room, still in our formal wear, reflecting on how far we'd come. The foundation had just raised enough to support 50 full scholarships for the next year. More importantly, we'd connected with dozens of young women who reminded us why we'd started this journey. "Do you ever wonder," Michael asked, "what would have happened if Jennifer had just been happy for us? If she'd accepted what we freely gave and not demanded more?" I considered the question. She'd probably still be in our lives. The kids would have their mother actively present. Family gatherings wouldn't require strategic planning. But you know what? We might not have started the foundation. We might not have learnt to set boundaries. We might have just kept enabling her behaviour until something even worse happened. He nodded thoughtfully. "It's strange to be grateful for painful experiences, but I see your point. Her actions led us here to work that really matters." It was true. The foundation had become more than just a way to give back. It had become our mission, our way of transforming a painful personal experience into something that helped others. Every young woman who learned to say no to financial manipulation, every family that stayed intact despite monetary success, every boundary successfully maintained, these were victories born from our own struggles. Tyler called the next morning, excited about an internship he'd landed at a major engineering firm. He was in his junior year now, excelling academically and socially. He'd even started dating a lovely young woman who treated him with the respect and kindness he deserved. "Aunt Sarah," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice, "I wanted to thank you again, not just for the college fund, but for everything, for showing me what real family looks like, for teaching me that love doesn't come with a price tag attached." I had to wipe away tears before I could respond. "You taught us just as much, Tyler. Your courage in standing up for what was right, even when it meant going against your mother, that inspired us. You're going to do amazing things." "Maybe," he said with a laugh. "But if I do, I promise I won't let it change who I am. I've seen what that looks like, and I want no part of it." After we hung up, I sat there thinking about the ripple effects of our choices. Yes, Jennifer had caused tremendous pain. Her entitlement and manipulation had fractured our family in ways that might never fully heal. But look what had grown from that fracture. The foundation. Stronger relationships with those who truly mattered. A deeper understanding of ourselves and our values. Robert had found love again, with a wonderful woman named Claire, who embraced his children as her own. They'd married in a small ceremony at the beach house in Maine, with Tyler giving a beautiful toast about second chances and choosing happiness. Even Jennifer's other children were thriving, free from their mother's toxic influence. As for Jennifer herself, we heard updates occasionally through the family grapevine. She'd remarried and divorced again, still chasing something external to fill whatever void drove her behavior. She'd started and abandoned multiple business ventures, always blaming others when they failed. It was sad, really, watching someone with so much potential waste it on bitterness and entitlement. The last direct contact we had was a letter she sent on what would have been her 20th wedding anniversary to Robert. In it, she blamed us for everything that had gone wrong in her life. If we hadn't flaunted our wealth, she wrote, she would still be happily married. If we'd just given her what she deserved, she wouldn't have had to fight so hard. It was everyone's fault but her own. Michael wanted to respond, to try one more time to make her see reason. But I convinced him to let it go. Some people aren't ready to look in the mirror. Some people will always see themselves as victims, no matter how much evidence exists to the contrary. Jennifer was one of those people, and no amount of logic or compassion would change that. Instead, we channeled our energy into the positive things in our life. The foundation continued to grow and thrive. We launched a series of free online workshops so people who couldn't attend in person could still benefit from the financial literacy training. We wrote a book together about navigating family dynamics when financial situations change, with all proceeds going to the foundation. Our own children grew into adults we were proud of. Our eldest followed through with his business and psychology double major, eventually starting a consulting firm that helped family businesses navigate succession planning and interpersonal conflicts. Our middle child became a teacher, passionate about education equality. Our youngest pursued medicine, inspired by my work in biomedical research but determined to focus on direct patient care. None of them took their privileges for granted. They'd seen firsthand how money could corrupt relationships, how entitlement could destroy families. They worked hard, stayed humble, and always remembered that their advantages came with responsibilities. On quiet evenings at the beach house, watching the sun set over the ocean, Michael and I often marveled at the unexpected turns our life had taken. Yes, we had financial wealth beyond our wildest dreams, but our true wealth lay in the relationships that had survived and strengthened through adversity, in the young people we'd helped launch into successful careers, in the knowledge that we'd used our resources to make a real difference. Jennifer's ghost sometimes haunted these peaceful moments. What if we'd handled things differently? What if we'd said yes to that $35,000 vacation and the inevitable requests that would have followed? What if we'd enabled her entitlement instead of standing firm? But those what-ifs always led to the same conclusion. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. Generosity without limits becomes enablement. True love sometimes means saying no, even when it's painful, even when it costs you relationships you once treasured. The beach house itself had become a symbol of our journey. What started as a dream vacation home had become a gathering place for chosen family, a retreat for foundation scholars who needed a break, a venue for small weddings and celebrations of life. The Andersons still lived there most of the year, their rent far below market rate because some things matter more than maximizing profit. Last Thanksgiving, we hosted dinner at the main house. The table was full but different from a decade ago. Patricia and her family were there, of course. Robert and Claire with all the kids. Several foundation scholars who couldn't make it home for the holiday. Dear friends who'd stood by us through everything. The Andersons even joined us, bringing their famous cranberry sauce and homemade rolls. Tyler stood to give a toast, now a successful engineer working on sustainable energy solutions. 10 years ago, he began, my family looked very different. We've lost some people along the way, but we've gained so much more. We've learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to show up for each other, choosing kindness over entitlement, choosing love over manipulation. He raised his glass to Michael and me. To Aunt Sarah and Uncle Michael, who showed us that true generosity isn't about giving people whatever they want. It's about giving them what they need, even when that's a difficult lesson in boundaries and accountability. Thank you for loving us enough to stand firm, even when it would have been easier to give in. There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Even Michael, who rarely showed emotion publicly, had to clear his throat several times before he could respond. We toasted to family, both born and chosen, to lessons learned and boundaries maintained, to the unexpected blessings that come from standing up for what's right. After dinner, as we cleared dishes and settled in for board games and conversation, I found myself in the kitchen with Patricia. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that only comes from years of shared experiences. Do you think she's happy? Patricia asked suddenly. We both knew who she meant. I considered the question carefully. I think Jennifer is as happy as she's capable of being. Some people go through life believing happiness comes from what others give them, rather than what they create themselves. Until she learns differently, if she ever does, this is her version of happiness. Patricia nodded sadly. I miss the sister I thought I had, the one who existed before the money made everything clear. That sister was always a bit of an illusion, I said gently. The money didn't create her entitlement, it just revealed it. But I understand missing the illusion. Sometimes those are easier to love than the real person. We hugged then, two women who'd weathered an unexpected storm together, who'd learned that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. We'd both lost a sister-in-law and a sister, but we'd gained something deeper in each other. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Michael and I stood on our front porch, watching cars disappear into the darkness. Our children were inside laughing over some shared joke. The house was full of warmth and love and the detritus of a successful gathering. "No regrets?" Michael asked, taking my hand. I thought about it, really thought about it. The money had brought complications we'd never imagined. It had cost us relationships, created stress, and forced us to make difficult decisions. But it had also allowed us to change lives, to create opportunities, to build something meaningful from our success. "No regrets," I said firmly. "Not about the boundaries we set, not about the foundation, not about any of it. Jennifer made her choices, and we made ours. I'm proud of the choices we made." He squeezed my hand, "Even though it cost us." "Especially because it cost us," I replied. "The easy choice would have been to throw money at every problem, to buy peace at any price. The hard choice was saying no, maintaining boundaries, and accepting the consequences. That's the choice that led us here, to this life filled with people who love us for who we are, not what we can give them." We went inside then, rejoining our family, our real family, the one built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation and entitlement. The house was full of laughter and light, of people who understood that love isn't measured in dollar signs, and that true generosity sometimes means knowing when to say no. Looking back now, 10 years after that first windfall, I can see the full arc of our story. The initial joy and excitement of financial freedom, the pleasure of sharing our good fortune with family, the shock of discovering that generosity could breed resentment and entitlement, the pain of setting boundaries and losing relationships, the unexpected joy of finding our true purpose in helping others navigate similar challenges. Jennifer remains a cautionary tale we share with foundation scholars, anonymized but recognizable to anyone who's dealt with entitled family members. We tell them about the birthday party, about the $35,000 demand, about how standing firm cost us a relationship but saved us from enabling destructive behavior. More importantly, we share what we learned. That wealth is a tool, not a measure of worth. That boundaries are essential, even with family, especially with family. That true love sometimes means disappointing people in the short term to help them in the long term. That you can't buy happiness for someone else, no matter how much money you have. The foundation now operates in 12 cities, has provided over 300 full scholarships, and has helped countless young women navigate the complexities of financial success. Every success story, every young woman who maintains healthy boundaries while building her career, every family that stays intact despite changing financial dynamics, these are our greatest returns on investment. Tyler recently called with news. He's engaged to his girlfriend, a fellow engineer who shares his values and work ethic. They want to have the wedding at the beach house in Maine, a small affair with only the people who truly matter to them. He asked if I would officiate, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. "I can't think of anyone better to marry us," he said. "Someone who understands that love means setting boundaries, that family is about choice as much as blood, that true partnership means supporting each other's growth even when it's difficult." I accepted, of course, deeply honored by the request. As I prepare remarks for their ceremony, I think about the journey that brought us here. From a birthday party that ended in tears and recriminations to a wedding celebrating healthy love and mutual respect. It's a powerful reminder that good can come from even the most painful experiences. The money is still there, still growing, still providing opportunities to make a difference, but it no longer defines us. We're defined by the choices we've made, the boundaries we've maintained, the lives we've touched, and the family we've built through intention rather than mere genetics. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I wonder if Jennifer ever reflects on what she lost. Not the vacation she demanded or the money she felt entitled to, but the relationships she destroyed, the love she rejected, the family she alienated. I hope someday she finds peace and realizes that happiness comes from within, not from what others can give you. But that's her journey to make, her lesson to learn or not learn. Our journey continues, filled with purpose and surrounded by people who understand that love and money are separate currencies, that generosity and enabling are different things, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. The beach house stands ready for Tyler's wedding, for future foundation retreats, for family gatherings yet to come. It's more than just a property now. It's a symbol of dreams achieved through hard work, of generosity with boundaries, of family defined by love rather than blood alone. As I finish writing this reflection, I'm struck by how different our life is from what we imagined that day the first big check arrived. We thought money would simplify things, solve problems, bring universal happiness. Instead, it complicated our lives in ways we never anticipated, revealed truths about people we thought we knew, and forced us to make choices we never expected to face. But it also gave us the opportunity to transform pain into purpose, to help others avoid our mistakes, to build something meaningful from our success. The Jennifer situation, as painful as it was, became the catalyst for the foundation and all the good that has flowed from it. In a strange way, I'm grateful for that birthday party confrontation. Without it, we might still be enabling her behavior, still confusing generosity with weakness, still believing that family means accepting any treatment in the name of blood bonds. Now we know better. Family means loving each other enough to set boundaries. Generosity means giving wisely, not indiscriminately. Success means using your advantages to lift others up, not to create dependence. These are the lessons we pass on to foundation scholars, to our children, to anyone who will listen. The money that seemed like a simple blessing turned out to be a complex test of character for us and for everyone around us. We're grateful we passed that test, even if it meant losing some people along the way. Because what we gained, the integrity, the purpose, the genuine relationships, the ability to make a real difference, is worth more than any amount of money in any bank account. This is our story of very entitled in-laws, but more than that, it's a story of growth, of learning to say no with love, of building a family based on shared values rather than shared DNA. It's a story of how money reveals character rather than creating it, and how the most valuable things in life, boundaries, self-respect, genuine relationships, can't be bought at any price. As for Jennifer, wherever she is, whatever she's doing, I hope she's found her own path to happiness that doesn't depend on others funding her dreams. But whether she has or hasn't, we've moved on, building a life rich in purpose and genuine connection, surrounded by people who love us for who we are, not for what we can provide. And that, more than any investment or windfall, is true wealth. But let me take you back a bit to share more about how this journey really began, because understanding where we came from makes where we ended up even more meaningful. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the daughter of a factory worker and a school secretary. Money was always tight. Not desperate poverty, but the kind of careful budgeting where every dollar had a purpose and unexpected expenses meant something else had to wait. My parents worked hard to give my brother James and me opportunities they never had, especially education. I discovered my love for science in high school thanks to an inspiring chemistry teacher who saw potential in a shy girl who asked too many questions. She encouraged me to apply for scholarships, to dream bigger than our small town. When I got into MIT, my parents cried, first with joy, then with worry about how we'd afford it, even with financial aid. Those college years were a blur of studying, working multiple jobs, and slowly building the foundation for everything that would come later. I met Michael in my junior year in a statistics class we were both struggling through. He was studying education, wanting to become a teacher like the ones who'd changed his life. We bonded over late-night study sessions, fueled by cheap coffee, and dreams of making a difference. The early years of our marriage were lean but happy. Michael started teaching high school history while I pursued my doctorate in biomedical engineering. We lived in a tiny apartment where the radiator clanged all night and the hot water lasted exactly 7 minutes, but we were building something together. Every small victory felt enormous. Getting my first paper published, Michael's students winning the State History Bowl, finally being able to afford a reliable car. The investment piece started almost by accident. A colleague mentioned a startup looking for advisors, offering small equity stakes instead of consulting fees since they couldn't afford to pay. I almost said no. We needed actual money, not theoretical future value. But something about their technology intrigued me. It was a new approach to data analysis that could revolutionize how we process medical research. I took the equity. That company was acquired 3 years later for an amount that seemed astronomical to us then, though it was modest compared to what would come later. We paid off student loans, bought our first house, started college funds for the children we hoped to have. But more importantly, it taught me to see potential where others saw risk, to trust my instincts about technology and people. Over the next decade, I made similar small investments while building my career. Not gambling, but calculated risks based on deep research and genuine belief in the technologies. Some failed spectacularly. I lost our entire emergency fund on a company that promised to revolutionize surgical tools but couldn't get FDA approval. Michael never complained, just picked up summer school teaching to help us rebuild. But the successes outweighed the failures. A diagnostic tool I'd helped develop started being used in hospitals worldwide. A data processing algorithm I'd invested in became industry standard. The pattern recognition software I'd advised on was acquired by a major tech company. Each success built on the last, creating momentum I hadn't anticipated. When the really big money started coming in, it felt surreal. I remember sitting in our financial advisor Janet's office as she explained just how much our portfolio was worth. The numbers didn't feel real. How could someone who'd grown up clipping coupons and wearing hand-me-downs suddenly have millions? Michael held my hand as Janet talked about diversification and tax strategies, both of us trying to process this new reality. That's when we made the decision that would shape everything else. We would use this money to lift up everyone we could, starting with family. We'd both benefited from others' generosity, from teachers who'd stayed after school to help us, from relatives who had slipped us $20 bills for textbooks, from friends who had shared meals when money was tight. Now it was our turn to pay it forward. The family meeting where we announced the college funds was something I'll never forget. We'd invited everyone to what they thought was just a regular summer barbecue. After dinner, as the kids played in the yard and the adults relaxed with coffee and pie, Michael and I stood up to speak. "We have some news to share," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "As some of you know, my work and investments have done well recently. Actually, more than well. And Michael and I have decided what we want to do with this blessing." I explained about the college funds, the mortgage help, the equal treatment for all nieces and nephews. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then James's wife Maria started crying. "You mean our kids can go to any school they can get into?" she whispered. "Without loans, without struggling like we did." The dam broke then. Tears, hugs, excited chatter about possibilities previously unimaginable. Patricia's middle child, who'd been worried about affording art school, looked like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Jennifer's son Tyler, already showing brilliance in mathematics, started talking excitedly about MIT, my alma mater. Even then, though, Jennifer's reaction was slightly off. While everyone else expressed gratitude and amazement, she quickly pivoted to what else might be possible. "This is amazing," she said, but her eyes were calculating. "And really, it's just the beginning, right? I mean, with your kind of money, the possibilities are endless." Michael's mother pulled me aside later that evening. "Watch that one," she said quietly, nodding toward Jennifer. "I love my daughter, but she's always had expensive tastes and a belief that the world owes her more. Don't let her take advantage of your good heart." I wish I'd paid more attention to that warning, but I was riding high on the joy of being able to help. The looks on our family members' faces, the tears of relief and gratitude, the excited planning for futures suddenly made possible. It was intoxicating in the best way. Over the following months, we refined our giving strategy. We met with attorneys to set up the education trusts properly, with clear guidelines and restrictions. The money could only be used for tuition, books, room and board at accredited institutions. Any leftover could be put toward a first home purchase, but only after graduation. We wanted to encourage completion, not enable dropping out with a windfall. We also started learning about the psychology of sudden wealth, both for ourselves and for those we were helping. Janet recommended several books and even a therapist who specialized in these issues. It seemed excessive at the time, talking to someone about the problem of having money, but it proved invaluable. The therapist, Dr. Morgan, helped us understand the complex emotions everyone was experiencing. Money changes relationships, she explained. Even when the changes seem positive, they're still changes. People need time to adjust to new dynamics, new possibilities, new versions of themselves and each other. She was right. Some relationships deepened beautifully. My brother James and I grew even closer as we navigated this new terrain together. He was grateful, but not obsequious, maintaining his dignity while accepting help that would transform his children's lives. We could talk honestly about the strangeness of it all, the survivor's guilt, the fear that it might all disappear as quickly as it had arrived. Patricia, too, became an even better friend and sister. She used the financial breathing room to pursue her own dreams, going back to school to become a nurse practitioner, something she'd always wanted but couldn't afford with 3 kids. She kept us grounded, reminding us of our values, calling us out if we ever seemed to be losing touch with reality. But Jennifer, oh Jennifer! The ask started small and seemed reasonable. Could we cover her kids' summer camp? Of course, we were already paying for the other cousins' activities. Could we help with Tyler's math tutoring? Absolutely. Education was important. Could we pay for a family membership to the country club? Well, that seemed less necessary, but she argued it was for networking, for the children's futures. Each yes led to a bigger ask. Each boundary we tried to set was met with hurt feelings and accusations of favoritism. You paid for Patricia's nursing school, she'd point out, conveniently ignoring that we'd offered to pay for her to go back to school too, if she wanted. She didn't want education or career development, she wanted lifestyle upgrades. The foundation started partly as a response to these dynamics. We needed something positive to focus on, something that used our resources for clear good without the family complications. Diana and I spent months planning before we launched, interviewing young women in STEM fields about their challenges, researching existing programs, identifying gaps we could fill. Our first scholar was a young woman named Keisha from inner-city Baltimore. Brilliant in mathematics, accepted to Carnegie Mellon, but her single mother couldn't even afford the deposit, let alone tuition. We covered everything, but more importantly, we paired her with a mentor, helped her navigate the cultural shock of an elite institution, taught her how to manage the stipend we provided for living expenses. Keisha graduated summa cum laude and went on to work for NASA. She still sends updates, photos from her wedding, news of her promotions. She's now a mentor herself, helping the next generation of scholars. These connections, these ripple effects of one act of generosity, they're what make everything worthwhile. But for every Keisha, there was a Jennifer, someone who saw our generosity as weakness, our boundaries as challenges to overcome. The birthday party confrontation was just the most dramatic example of an ongoing pattern. There were countless smaller incidents, each eroding family harmony a little more. There was the Christmas where she gave everyone elaborate wish lists, with items far beyond normal gift-giving range, designer handbags, jewelry, electronics. When she received normal gifts, nice but reasonable, her disappointment was palpable. I just thought, with everything you've done for everyone else, she'd trail off, leaving the accusation hanging. There was the time she called crying, saying they were about to lose their house. Michael and I rushed over, checkbook in hand, only to discover the crisis was that they'd fallen behind on payments because they'd spent their mortgage money on a European vacation. We deserved it after such a hard year, Jennifer explained, apparently not seeing the irony of creating a financial crisis to fund luxury travel. Each incident forced us to refine our boundaries, to get clearer about what we would and wouldn't support. Emergency medical expenses? Of course. True educational opportunities? Absolutely. Lifestyle maintenance for those unwilling to live within their means? No. The strain on Michael was particularly hard to watch. He loved his sister, remembered the little girl who'd followed him around adoringly, who'd brought him terrible crayon drawings that he'd treasured. To see her become someone ruled by envy and entitlement broke his heart. He tried talking to her, privately, gently, about gratitude and perspective. She accused him of being brainwashed by me. It was actually Robert who finally helped us see the situation clearly. He came to us one evening, alone, while Jennifer was at what she claimed was a work event, but he suspected was another planning session for the vacation she was determined we'd fund. "I'm losing her," he said simply. "Or maybe I've already lost her. She's obsessed with what others have, with what she thinks she deserves. Nothing I provide is ever enough because she's not comparing our life to our means. She's comparing it to yours." We talked for hours that night. Robert revealed that Jennifer had been secretly applying for credit cards, running up debt for luxury purchases she insisted they needed to keep up appearances. She'd been lying to him about where money went, hiding shopping bags, manipulating their children into keeping secrets about her spending. "The worst part," Robert said, his voice breaking, "is what it's doing to the kids. Tyler asked me the other day if we were poor. I told him no, we're comfortable, we have everything we need. He said, then why does Mum cry about money all the time? Why does she say Aunt Sarah is mean for not sharing?" That conversation was a turning point. We realized that by not firmly addressing Jennifer's behavior, we were enabling not just her destructive patterns, but the damage those patterns were causing to her marriage and children. Love sometimes requires tough choices, and continuing to avoid confrontation was no longer the loving choice. The birthday party explosion, when it came, was almost a relief. Finally, everything was in the open. No more passive-aggressive comments everyone pretended not to hear. No more manipulative hints everyone uncomfortably ignored. Just raw, ugly entitlement laid bare for all to see. Tyler's accidental recording became an unexpected gift to the family. Not because it hurt Jennifer, though it certainly did that, but because it freed everyone else from doubt. Were we being too harsh? Were we misinterpreting her behavior? The recording made it crystal clear that Jennifer's resentment ran deep and had nothing to do with actual need or fairness. The aftermath was messier than I've previously described. Jennifer didn't just retreat quietly. She launched a campaign to turn extended family against us. She called cousins, aunts, uncles, anyone who would listen, painting herself as the victim of our cruelty. Some believed her at first. Why wouldn't we help a family member in need? What kind of people hoarded wealth while others struggled? We had to make difficult decisions about how much to reveal. We didn't want to air all the dirty laundry, but we also couldn't let lies stand unchallenged. Eventually, we settled on a simple statement of facts. We'd provided college funds for all nieces and nephews, helped with mortgages, included everyone in vacations. If that wasn't enough, we were sorry, but we couldn't fund unlimited wants disguised as needs. Most family members, once they heard both sides, understood. A few remained convinced we were being selfish, that family should share everything. Those relationships grew distant, teaching us that not everyone shares the same values around money, boundaries, and personal responsibility. The foundation became our refuge during this difficult time. Every scholarship recipient who thrived, every young woman who learned to set financial boundaries with demanding family members. Every success story reminded us why we'd made the choices we had. We couldn't save Jennifer from herself, but we could help others avoid similar traps. One particularly meaningful moment came during a foundation workshop on dealing with family financial pressure. A young engineer named Priya was sharing her story about her extended family's expectations now that she had a good job. "They think because I make 6 figures, I should support everyone, pay for cousins' weddings, uncles' business ventures, everything. When I say no, they call me selfish, westernized, forgetting where I came from." I shared our story with her, anonymized but honest. The relief on her face was profound. You mean it's okay to say no, even to family, even if you can afford to say yes? Not just okay, I told her, sometimes necessary. Supporting family is beautiful, but not when it enables destructive behavior or comes at the cost of your own well-being. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're essential. After the workshop, Priya stayed behind to talk more. She'd been carrying such guilt about not funding her cousin's third business venture after the first two had failed due to poor planning. Her family was pressuring her, calling her heartless, reminding her of all they'd done for her growing up. "What would you tell your daughter in this situation?" I asked her. She thought for a moment. "I'd tell her to protect herself, to be generous but not foolish, to remember that she can't help others if she lets them drain her dry." "Then give yourself the same advice," I suggested. "The same compassion you'd show your daughter, show yourself." Priya left that day with new resolve. She later reported that she'd had difficult but necessary conversations with her family, setting clear boundaries about what she would and wouldn't support. Some relationships suffered, but others actually improved once expectations were clear. These interactions reinforced the importance of our work. For every entitled Jennifer, there were dozens of Priyas, Keishas, and others trying to navigate the complex intersection of success, family, and financial responsibility. If our painful experience could help them avoid similar pitfalls, then something good had come from something difficult. Tyler's growth through all of this continued to amaze us. He could have become bitter about his mother's behavior, could have let it define him. Instead, he used it as motivation to become someone different. He volunteered with the foundation during high school, sharing his perspective as someone who'd witnessed firsthand how money could corrupt family relationships. During one panel discussion for scholarship recipients, Tyler spoke with remarkable wisdom. "My mother let money, specifically other people's money, become more important than relationships. She convinced herself she deserved things she hadn't earned, that love meant never hearing no. I watched it destroy her marriage and damage her relationships with everyone who actually loved her. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me." A young woman in the audience raised her hand. "But how do you handle the guilt when family members struggle and you could help but know you shouldn't?" Tyler's answer was thoughtful. "You remember that enabling isn't love. My aunt and uncle could have given my mother everything she asked for. It would have been easier for everyone in the short term, but it wouldn't have helped her become a better person. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices." His maturity never ceased to amaze me. This young man who'd watched his family implode over money had somehow emerged with wisdom and perspective beyond his years. He'd taken what could have been a crushing experience and transformed it into purpose. As Tyler's wedding approaches, I've been reflecting more on the full journey we've traveled, from that first investment in a startup I believed in to building a foundation that's changed hundreds of lives. From family gatherings where money was never discussed to explosive confrontations over vacation demands. From simple dreams of paying off a mortgage to complex realities of managing wealth responsibly. The beach house in Maine has seen it all. Happy family vacations before the money. Tense gatherings as entitlement emerged. Peaceful retreats with chosen family who understood boundaries. Now it will host Tyler's wedding, a celebration of healthy love between two people who understand that partnership isn't about what you can get from someone, but what you can build together. I've written my officiating remarks, weaving in themes of gratitude, boundaries, and choosing love every day. Tyler and his fiancée, Amanda, have written their own vows, promising to support each other's growth, to communicate honestly even when it's difficult, and to never let external pressures corrupt their bond. The guest list is small but meaningful. Robert and Claire, of course. Patricia and her family. My brother James and his wife. Close friends who've become family. Foundation colleagues and scholars who've become part of our extended community. Jennifer was invited. Tyler insisted on it despite everything, but she declined. Her note said she had a work commitment, but we all know the truth. She can't bear to see the life her son has built without her influence, the happiness he's found by rejecting her values. As I put the finishing touches on this reflection, sitting in my office overlooking the garden Michael tends with such care, I'm filled with gratitude. Not just for the financial resource we've been blessed with, but for the lessons they've brought. For the opportunity to transform privilege into purpose. For the family, both biological and chosen, who've stood by us through difficult decisions. The money that started this journey continues to grow, carefully managed and strategically deployed. But it's not the numbers in investment accounts that matter most. It's the young woman who just defended her PhD thesis, funded by a foundation scholarship. It's Tyler, building a career and life on principles of hard work and integrity. It's the marriage Michael and I have strengthened through facing challenges together. Jennifer's story serves as a constant reminder of what happens when want becomes confused with need, when entitlement replaces gratitude, when family becomes synonymous with financial obligation. Her exile is largely self-imposed, a consequence of choices she continues to make. The door remains open if she ever chooses growth over grievance, accountability over accusation. But we've learned not to wait for changes that may never come. Life is too short, too precious, to spend hoping others will transform. Instead, we focus on what we can control, the good we can do, the lives we can impact, the boundaries we can maintain with love. Next month, I'll stand before Tyler and Amanda at the beach house, the ocean as witness, and speak about love that builds rather than demands. I'll look out at the gathered faces, people who've chosen to build lives of meaning rather than entitlement, and feel the deep satisfaction of family formed by shared values rather than mere genetics. And somewhere in Arizona, Jennifer continues her journey, hopefully finding her own path to happiness that doesn't depend on others funding her dreams. We've all made our choices. We're living with the consequences, both the difficult and the beautiful. This is what family means, not blind support of destructive behavior, but loving each other enough to insist on growth, on accountability, on becoming our best selves. The Foundation's work continues. Next week, we're launching a new program specifically for first-generation college students dealing with family financial pressure. We've partnered with therapists who understand these unique challenges, financial advisors who can teach both generosity and boundaries, and successful professionals who've navigated similar waters. Every story we hear reinforces the universality of these challenges. Success, especially unexpected success, especially success that outpaces your family's, comes with complications no one prepares you for. The guilt, the requests, the resentment, the difficult choices between enabling and empowering, between keeping peace and maintaining principles. But every success story also reinforces that it's possible to navigate these challenges with grace, to be generous without being a doormat, to love family while maintaining boundaries, to use privilege for purpose without guilt or apology. As I close this reflection, I think about the woman I was 20 years ago, working 3 jobs to get through graduate school, dreaming of simply being debt-free. She couldn't have imagined this life, these challenges, these opportunities. But I think she would be proud of how we've handled it all. Not perfectly. We've made mistakes, hurt feelings, questioned ourselves, but with integrity. The greatest wealth isn't in bank accounts or investment portfolios. It's in relationships built on mutual respect. It's in boundaries that protect everyone's well-being. It's in the ability to say no with love and yes with wisdom. It's in transforming personal pain into purpose that helps others. This is our story of very entitled in-laws, but more importantly, it's a story of growth, resilience, and the complex beauty of family in all its forms. It's proof that money doesn't solve problems so much as reveal character, and that true wealth lies not in what you have, but in how you choose to use it, and who you choose to become along the way.